Mr. Jordan Harry, welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. How are you, my friend?
I am fantastic. I've been trying to do this thing where, but depending on the day, I try and describe how I feel with the letter it starts with. So Friday, fantastic.
Fantastic. Love that. Love that. Do me the honor and the privilege of giving yourself a bit of an introduction, who you are, but a little bit about your story.
Excellent. So my name's Jordan Harry, and I transform the way people learn by rewiring how your brain learns. And we do this by showing you how to read faster and remember more.
Love that. Talk to me about a bit of your journey. Where has the growth in that come from?
So it all started from a personal pain, way before I became a speed reading and memory coach. I wasn't a 10-year-old writing down in class, this is my dream career. Although if there is a 10-year-old with that dream career, please contact me. It all started when I had a speech impediment. And for those that may not know, if you can't pronounce the words, well, you have to slow down. And if you don't believe me, try learning a new language. If you can't pronounce the words, you don't know what they mean, and you, of course, don't want to pronounce them correctly. And in school, we're all taught to read aloud because it's the teacher's way to assess, are you saying the word correctly? Once you get to a proficient level, the whole class and yourself begin to read inside your head. So what I found was through school, for myself anyway, I haven't had a class called reading since I was 10. Yet every other subject gets progressively harder. And so in theory, we're all left with a reading age of a 10-year-old and we're all expected to keep up. And so I found with this voice in my head, there's got to be a faster way. Thankfully, it was my voice I could hear. So any listeners listening right now, if you're reading and it's not your voice you can hear, go see a professional. But this voice in my head I was using whilst I was reading, I was like, surely, if I'm using this voice in my head, I can only read as fast as I can talk. Now, if you're Tony Robbins, and if you don't know who he is, pause this podcast and go check him out and come back. He can speak at about 500 words per minute. But the average untrained reader talks at 250 words per minute. So it's no surprise when we look at the average reading speed, it's between 150 and 250 words per minute. And so one night at uni, Googled how to read faster, found a TED talk on why you should read a book a day. And my goal was to give a TED talk on how to read a book a day. And that's how it all started.
Love that. It's really interesting because I've been reflecting on kind of my own reading, and I read in evenings at night just before bed, and I find that if I'm reading when I'm too tired, I have to go back and I reread the same paragraph like so many different times. I mean, in your TEDx, I love how practical you are. You talk about tips and techniques that you like. What are some of the things that really helped you to start with?
Of course. So hopefully if people haven't seen it, go check out my TED talk because you'll be able to get a lot more from that than we can on this interview.
Sure.
And then of course, listening to this, we can build upon what they've already got. So during the TED talk, I show first of all, how to break your existing reading habits. We're trying to change a habit of a lifetime in 10 minutes, which of course is impossible. Yet I show you the possibilities. And so the most practical ones, if I was to give them now, is the one that accelerated my ability was being able to reduce subvocalization, that voice in your head that you use when you read. And number one is bringing in a low level distraction, chewing gum, pressing the tip of your tongue to the top of your mouth, because it's such a low level cognitive skill that your brain doesn't lose focus on what you're reading. However, it's impossible to do two things at 100%. One has to be sacrificed. So whilst you're chewing gum, your brain finds it very hard to focus on that voice whilst you're reading. And what you find is you start to see the words, and you don't have to hear the words to understand them. And there's a whole kind of riddle I can go on about that in a moment. And so for me, it was bringing in that low level distraction, playing classical music or music without lyrics, finding the right environment, finding the right time, as you just mentioned, at night. You have to find where reading fits into your lifestyle, because not everyone enjoys reading, and that's okay. And there's alternatives.
Makes so much sense. I'm very much a listener to music without lyrics. That's my thing. Why do you think the Why do you think that the TED Talks had 1.8 million views? Why do you think it's been so popular?
You know, it's phenomenal. You know, the fact that I'm sitting here across from you in the virtual world still blows my mind that, you know, ideally it's predicated off that TED Talk. You know, I don't want to discredit what I do, but ultimately I have to be transparent enough and be like, okay, if I didn't have 1.8 million views, would we be having this conversation? Maybe, maybe not. I may have been on your radar a little bit later on. Yet for me, to give people context, there's a shot during the video, and you may have seen it, where you see the audience, and I don't know why they did it. Because we must have had 3 people that attended. 5 of them were the organizers, and then others were supporting people. So in the audience, maximum 15 people. Don't take my word for it. Go check out the talk, How to Read a Book a Day. And for me, I was one of the few speakers that didn't walk out. And so for the people listening, like, what? Speakers walked out? What you have to understand is, whether it's TEDx, a small independently ran event, or TED, the TED platform where Bill Gates, the late Steve Jobs, deliver talks at. These speakers have spent months, years preparing for this 10-minute talk that ultimately, can transform your life. Now, for me, I didn't care if there were 10 people in the room or 10,000. And I thought to myself, why should these 10 people get any less value than 10,000? And then the second part of my little brain inside me was like, well, Jordan, what if you over deliver? Because you know what you're about to deliver right now. And at this stage, I had no business. Study Fast, my memory and speed reading training company, didn't exist. But I said to myself, if I deliver this talk as if there were 10,000 people in the room, somehow 10,000 people will. You know, one person in this room will tell their boss, and their boss will bring me into their company. You know, I just thought of serendipity. And long and behold, delivered a flawless talk, at least to my ability back then. And thankfully it was recorded, and to a good enough standard, where when it was put up online, there were a series of things which will now answer your question. Why has it taken off? Because TEDx talks are given every day, every hour around the world. There's very few that hit 1,000 views. There's even fewer that hit 10,000. And there is that top 1% that reach a million plus threshold. My goal, and it still doesn't really settle in, you know, 1 million, wasn't to hit that. What happened was, number one, the title, How to Read a Book a Day. As you mentioned, it's a very practical, results-driven talk. It's not the importance of confidence. You know, no disrespect to anyone who talks about that. However, you know, by the time you invest 10 minutes, by the end of it, you will know how to read a book a day. At least you hope so, anyway. That's one. 2, the thumbnail. We have to look and be transparent. At the time, I was 19, so I'm a young guy. I'm mixed race. And, you know, I'd like to be kind of believing in myself. I'm quite good looking. And when you see the thumbnail, I look like Mbappe. And I didn't know who Mbappe was. Are you a football fan, Ryan?
Yeah, I know who he is,
Mbappe, yeah, so for those that don't know, he's a French striker. He blew up during the World Cup. Ironically, same time my TED Talk went out. So Mbappe was on everyone's social media, and at the same time, my YouTube video was growing as well. And if you look at the comments, every other comment is, oh, Mbappe is a speed reader. Why is he teaching me how to speed read? No wonder he's so fast, you know? And I welcome those comments. And then I guess the final ingredient. So we've got number 1, the title. Number 2, the thumbnail. Number 3, ultimately, is it shareable? Because the way anything travels is if the customer, the fan, believes in it so much that they want to tell someone else. So not algorithm, but actually organic. And so I found that, thankfully, I believe in this, and there's, of course, the numbers to prove it. My talk brought people a lot of value. And at the end, I didn't do this technique on purpose, but I said, please take what you've learned here today, share it with someone else. Because to teach once is to learn twice. And I didn't know at the time. I was pretty much telling people, like, subscribe, put the bell on, you know, tag, comment. Because from there, they were like, wow, he's given us ownership. So those 3 things took my talk from 15 views to 1.8, and hell, in a year's time, who knows where this will be.
I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
In kind of business world, there's this dichotomy between quantity and quality. How do you find that shows up with speed reading?
If you don't mind me asking, I'll refer back to you. In what context? Are you talking from the business level, or are you talking about from speed reading?
So I'm thinking, if I go and get one of my books from my
Mm-hmm.
shelf right now, and maybe this isn't because I've practiced, but if I look to read that quickly, how
Yep.
much of it have I taken in? How much of it then can I go and apply?
So comprehension is key. It's great reading fast, but if you don't remember it, it's pretty much useless. And what you find is one of the common, not objectives, but concerns on any workshop is, surely if I read faster, my comprehension suffers. And of course, it takes one of my workshops for me to take people through the exercises, for them to experience it themselves. I can sit here all day and I can tell you the study. I can tell you the results I've had with this student, but you really need to experience it yourself. Just like driving a car at fast speed. Ryan, are you relaxing when you're driving at 90 miles per hour? You know, you're paying attention. Whilst 30 miles per hour, you probably check your phone, even though you shouldn't. You'll be looking at the passers-by at 30 miles per hour. But when you're going 90 miles per hour, you better have both hands on that steering wheel and you better be paying attention. And it's the same with speed reading. I've simplified it there. That when you're going faster, you know, if you don't pay attention, you're going to miss key concepts. You're going to miss key words. The idea with speed reading is we're not missing out a single word. There's a technique, scanning, skimming. But speed reading is the ability to read over 600 words per minute. Just to remind the listeners, 250 words per minute is the average reader. 600 words is a speed reader classified. Myself, when I read a book which I comprehend, because it's all relative, I can read 7 times faster, so 1,500 words per minute. And kind of wrap this up nicely, there is no definitive answer to that, because if I was to read a book on business, I understand a lot of the business jargon and terms used. So when a word comes out like aggregate, I know what aggregate means. That thought process, if we get geeky, is done within 1/10 of a second. However, if I was to read I'm looking at my washing machine, a book on washing machines, and it talked about the valve system and how it sealed the door when you shut it, and then it used a big word, which I don't even know right now, of course, I would have to slow down. It would throw me off. And of course, even if I went over it, it would change the context of the sentence. And then my thought process is now still distracted by that sentence. And like many people, you get to the end of the page and you're like, what did I just read? And you go back to the top and you reread it, or even worse, to the end of the sentence. So instead of the conversation being about, you know, if I speed read, will I retain it? We should be having a conversation about expanding your vocabulary and expanding your understanding on the topic area you're about to read. And so those two things that we focus, that's different. Maybe that is a technique. Those two things we address at the beginning of each workshop.
My son's 7, and I do a lot of work around growth mindset with him, and he loves learning. He loves reading in particular. What's the best thing I can do to support his learning and reading as a 7-year-old?
Yeah. Well, number one is enjoyment. You know, it's that confidence competence loop. If you enjoy what you do, you're good at it. If you're good at it, you get confidence. Doesn't matter if you're 7 or 70. As I mentioned before, if you don't enjoy doing something, your brain's going to experience discomfort. And what happens when our brains experience discomfort is we procrastinate. That's what procrastination is. Procrastination is our brain's safety mechanism of moving away from pain and doing something pleasurable. And that's why when we sit down and we know we have to write that assignment or answer that email, but the thought of it, it's just painful. But you know, I could get instant gratification by answering my LinkedIn messages or Facebook messages and get rid of that little 2 in the red dot. And so what we need to understand is creating tiny habits. There's a great author called BJ Fogg with 2 G's. Don't know what his initials stand for, BJ. I should probably find that out. And he's released a book called Tiny Habits. It goes beyond this whole habit formation of 21 days, of 60 days. Ultimately, to form a habit, you need to be consistent. There's no two ways about it. Mm-hmm. To be consistent, you need to enjoy what you're doing. Yep. It's not always easier said than done, so we need to hack it. And so for your 7-year-old son, I would encourage reading to him or getting him to read for 2 minutes every day. The simple act of opening the book every day. The simple act of him carrying a book with him in his school bag, having it on his bedside table. Because what we need to look at is reducing the resistance to starting the activity. Because once we get him going, once we get him past, and once again, the research is out, the first 10 to 30 seconds of resistance, he'll start enjoying it. And we can all relate on this, where we've sat down, that assignment is due in 2 months' time, we've now got 2 days to do it, and we're like, oh, I might as well start it. And you're like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't as hard as I thought. And you actually really get involved, and you're like, oh man, I love it, and you can't stop. And that moment where you're loving it, that's when you should actually take a break. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't be taking a break where you've burnt out and you've had enough and you're bored and you've hit a wall. Because what you want to finish before, you want to take a break before you're finished. Mm-hmm. So what will happen is, whilst you take a 5-minute break, go make that coffee, your subconscious is thinking about it and you're excited to return. So make it fun.
Advice. Yeah, great advice. You touched on your workshops. What's it like to come to a Study Fast workshop?
No one's actually asked me that. I like that. Mm-hmm. What is it like? Well, of course I'm biased. Of course it's a spectacular show. But ultimately, I don't look or sound like the average speed reader or memory coach, let alone the average continued professional development coach. Mm-hmm. You know, beyond my physical appearance, I'd like to think I'm charismatic. I like to think I have a good sense of humor. And so, once again, I understand how memories work. And if there's a lot of emotion attached, you're more likely to remember. You did badly in classes you didn't enjoy because the emotion you experienced was boredom. That's not much of an emotion to attach to a piece of information. So when you come to one of our workshops, whether we come into your company, because that's primarily what we do, in-house training, where we'll come, we'll speak with your head of HR or your head of learning and development, and I'll have that conversation where the employees can then come in for free. The employees want to be there. That's number one. We don't want anyone forced to be in a workshop.
Absolutely.
And then how it actually looks logistically is, before each workshop, pre-assessment test to see who's in the room. Make sure the topics that they want are covered. How to remember more names, how to learn a language faster, or how to read more books. Once we have that information, we then will deliver a 2-hour workshop or one of our immersion programs, which is a little bit longer. And during those 2-hour workshop, it's more facilitation. It's less of, I'm the teacher, you're the student. I learn just as much from my students as they learn from me. I share the techniques and how to apply them to their job specific and real world problems. And then we have that conversation in between the exercises, before, during, and after, to really find out what are people's specific pain points. So by the end of each workshop, whether it's the 2-hour one, whether it's our 3-day immersion program, ultimately people are left independent and with long-term results, where they never have to come back on one of my courses. They have access to online courses as kind of a refresher, but they're now independent, and makes me redundant. So that's what the workshop looks like from it's an overview.
That's legacy, isn't it? I like that.
Thank you.
So what are some of the commonalities in terms of those pain points that you experience or that your students are experiencing?
Yeah. So, pain points are difficult ones because I work with students in academia. I work with teachers in academia. I work with corporate professionals, which, oh my Lord, if we go into that, we all know how many different industries there are, how many job titles there are. And more so as well, people from disadvantaged backgrounds. So people who can't even access the curriculum, whether they're in school or they are in education, and they can't quite grasp literacy, they can't quite grasp maths, so on and so forth. So the pain points, as you can imagine, vary. But if I was to give you commonalities, most of them are centralized around personal development. So interactions, remembering someone's name, learning a new skill, so language learning. I would also add on the ability to retain information you read. These are quite general ones, but it makes sense because these are the most common problems across all different target markets. And then, of course, with speed reading, the ability to read faster. Some people want to double their reading speed, and some people want to beat me. And I welcome all challenges. Ideally, though, everyone that comes in to contact with myself, even you, it's a growth mindset. It's realizing that you aren't a finished product and that you want to learn anything faster. And so the one common pain point everyone has is we can all make more time, but you can't make more. No. Well, I've just botched my own little statement there. Greg, we do a little edit, chop, chop, chop. I'm playing around. I like it raw. So I'm just going to do a quick rewind with my own vocals. So everyone knows that you can make more money, but you can never make more time. And so that's one main reason people come to Study Fast.
Say that again.
We can all make more money, but we can't make more time.
Let that simmer.
Yeah, let that simmer, marinade.
Yeah, that's really true. I guess if you get the phone call tomorrow and it's the Secretary for Education and they say, Jordan, we want you to design the new curriculum for how young people learn. Like what would be the first few things on your plan?
I love the universe. I'm not religious myself, but I love the concept of the universe and speaking it into existence. And I did an interview with BBC Radio 3 2 days ago. And for the first time, I announced that I want to change the UK curriculum. It's always been simmering in the back of my head, but it seemed too mammoth of a task. Now that I've ticked off all these other little things, I'm like, okay, I'm hungrier. And it's still there. And so, ultimately, I do want to make sure, and this is your question, and I wish I could answer it. We have a class or classes. What does it look like? When is it deployed? Who is it for? I don't know yet. Where it is mandatory at some stage of the educational timeline that a student will sit into a room and they will learn how to learn. And it sounds so common sense, but it's not common practice because we would be doing it. And what I'm trying to do, Ryan, is having conversations with people like yourself about working backwards. Okay, how do you even get a new class within the national curriculum? What is that process? Let's work backwards. Department of Education, that's a fairly good start. But that's, of course, the people I need to talk to. And I haven't figured out what you've just asked me yet. I've got all the memory, the learning experts from around the world in my network. I meet with them on a monthly basis. They've got all these expertise. And I'm kind of the centralized point. And with me building my personal brand, Jordan Harry, I believe that I'll be able to leverage that or continue to keep leveraging it so that I will be in the right room, the right people, having this conversation. Not saying you're not the right person, but we will be having this conversation.
Yeah. And change makers.
And that, exactly. And that's what it will be. It will be a conversation with change makers. It won't be me and all these geeky experts in a room saying this is what everyone around the UK needs. This is policymakers, this is teachers, this is parents, this is children, this is the workforce. We all need to be in this conversation. And hopefully, when you ask me that I hate putting time constraints like 5 years. It's like, why can't you do it now? You know, hopefully when you ask me this in 5 years, I'll have a more, I guess, clarified answer on how we're going to go about it. Because right now it's more of a, let's just keep talking about it.
Yeah, for sure. So of our viewers on YouTube or our listeners on the podcast, who should make contact with you? Who should go and follow you? Who should connect with you?
Excellent. Well, this is the opportunity for people to come find me. If you've listened this far, well done. I love doing this. Contact me. Let me know you've listened to this podcast or watched the video, however it will be disseminated. And let me know you came from this, and I'll give you free access to one of my courses. And there's no upsell. There's no, give me your email. We'll put you into an email campaign, blah, 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 blah. This training needs to be accessible to all. Thankfully, the business model survives on corporate training, allowing me to do what makes me feel good, receive messages, which I respond to every day, about how my training has transformed someone's perspective. So if you are interested in taking me up on the offer and gaining access to my speed reading and my memory course, contact me on Instagram at Jordan Harry with 2 Y's and 2 N's. Annoyingly, Jordan Harry, he won't give me his username, so I had to add on 2 N's and 2 Y's to my name, annoyingly. And then alternatively, if Instagram's not your platform, I'm accessible on LinkedIn as Jordan Harry, and hopefully you'll see my little smiley face.
Amazing. And your Instagram business page?
That is Study Fast UK. Once again, Study Fast was taken. This is why I need to have all the money in the world so I can buy my usernames. That's what I would do if I won the lottery.
In time, my friend.
The money just to buy the usernames and domains I want.
Absolutely. You will get there, my friend. My ethos is all about helping people be always better than yesterday. I'm just curious to know what that phrase really means to you.
Interestingly, because I also do martial arts, so I'm able to like track in the gym. I'm stronger than what I was ever. You know, when you break PBs. And so I can see in areas of my life than what I was yesterday. And I think that's what people need to look for is small wins. So what that means to me is small wins every day. And it could be in cooking, it could be in cleaning, it could be, and I'm doing that because I'm sat in my kitchen. It could be in business. You figured out a more efficient, effective way to set up meetings using Google Calendars. I take that as a small win. Because you have to understand you're going to have down days. You're going to feel flat for a reason or not for a reason. And what you need to be able to do is play this game of small wins where when you're feeling down, you know full well, cool, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go learn that. And I'm going to learn 2 new words in Spanish. Believe me or not, there's a little bit of dopamine that's released in your brain when you learn something new, when you remember something, and it will change how you think, how you feel, and more importantly, how you interact with others.
Yeah, love that. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to spend it with us.
It's my pleasure.
I could speak to you all day about learning. I love learning, and yeah, I've been a follower of yours for a little while now, and I really enjoy the content you put out. So thank you for that. And I just love to hear a final thought from your good self.
Powerful. Well, if you don't mind, because I'd love to share your journey as well. You know, for those that may know or may not know, Ryan's just actually started full time on this hustle. So welcome to this world.
Thank you.
And it's scary. And so for anyone else listening who's thinking of making that transition, who's made the transition, who wants to make that transition, it is scary. Entrepreneurship is romanticized. And ultimately, kind of bringing back what I've already said, it's okay to have bad days. It's okay to feel flat. Something only recently I've accepted, where you can't be happy all the time. And not only that, you don't need to find a reason why you feel down. You know, I think as humans, when we are low and we want to be by ourselves, or we just don't feel like jumping on that podcast, we just don't feel like going to the shop, there doesn't need to be a reason for us to justify feeling like that. You just do, and that's okay. What's not okay is giving in to that feeling of feeling flat and canceling everything. Because you're not always going to feel like doing something when you have to do it. You're not always going to feel like going to the gym when you should be going to the gym.
Yeah.
And if you live your life predicated on doing things when you feel like it, you wouldn't do half the things that you do day to day. So just as kind of a reality check, not on a down note, because I want to make it positive,
practical, yeah,
realistic, optimist. Yeah, practical. Like, yes, tell yourself it's okay to feel flat. Tell yourself you don't need to justify it, and look for the small wins day to day.
Love that. Thank you, my friend. And for everyone that has taken the time to get this far in their podcast, again, thank you from us both. Please do go and connect with Jordan if you aren't already. And let us know what's really resonated with you. And do let us know in the comments. But Mr. Jordan Harry, thank you so much for your time, my friend.
Much appreciated. Keep winning.